Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 51, where tonight we are joined, delighted to join, we didn't think he was going for a second, and delighted to be joined by Mirror Football's Ben Husband and, of course, our two regular midfield generals in the form of Mark Knock and Chris Tyler. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Liverpool game, the Man City game. Mainly, we're going to focus on the January window, the ins, the loan outs, taking your questions and then looking ahead, maybe not forward to, a massive game against Liverpool on Saturday. It feels like quite a while ago now, Nocky, but we were at that Liverpool game together. Both felt it was kind of inevitable. But what was your take on Wolves 0, Liverpool 1 in the FA Cup replay that should never have been?
Flat would be the overriding emotion of it. I thought it was flat in the stands. It was Molineux was quiet apart from the Liverpool fans. I thought on the pitch we were flat. I was expecting a bit of bite, a bit of venom to it after what had happened at Anfield, but it was just really disappointing, I think. And the goal we give away was absolutely horrendous. I've no idea how Sart's got caught where he was. He was off his line and in the wrong position. And that was really it. It was game over when that one hit the net. I didn't feel like we were ever going to get back into it. I didn't feel like they were actually going to extend the lead because they were pretty average themselves, in all honesty. It was just a non-event when the ball hit the net. I was really disappointed. I expected a lot more from us, but it was just a flat, boring night, in all honesty. It was makes you wonder why we bothered in the first leg, to be honest. I was just limped out, so there was nothing in that second leg for me.
I mean, Ben, we all felt a huge amount of injustice from the first game. I'm probably never going to forget it because I hold on to things quite like that, as you probably noticed in the various WhatsApps exchanged. But was there almost an air of inevitability that Wolves were going to go out because of what had happened, and the reverse to what me and Nocky had said before, expecting some fire? But in reality, it was a case of, well, we've missed our opportunity or it's been taken away.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was in a little bit of the minority with the replay. Once the draw had happened and I saw it was Brighton away, I was like, the injustice for me had gone, and I wasn't too bothered about whether we won the replay or not. I wanted to see a performance, which we didn't get either, which was more disappointing for me than the result. It's how cup ties go a lot of the time. When there's one team that's much better than the other, you have that game, and if you get a result, then Wolves should have won the game. Wolves did win the game at Anfield, so. But it was. I mean, like Nucky said, once that goal went in, there was never any doubt that Wolves were going to come back into it. The commentary was like heaping praise on Liverpool. I thought Liverpool were dreadful as well.
Yeah, agreed.
They didn't have to do much, though. Tyler, just bringing you into that, mate. It wasn't really hard for Liverpool, was it? As soon as Ben and Nocky said, as soon as that goal went in, it didn't really seem. It almost seemed inevitable. Nocky was like, "Oh, we know what's going to happen now," and it felt a huge injustice. But I don't think we justified ourselves really, because the performance was just so meh.
No, I totally agree with Ben. I mean, Liverpool got a load of praise for that performance, and the only reason Wolves didn't win it was Wolves. If we'd have upped the tempo, upped the pace, we had a little go, last probably 10 minutes, had a couple of half chances, maybe even decent chances, to be fair. But Liverpool did absolutely nothing. The goal against, Karen Carney described it as a world. I mean, terrible goalkeeping, terrible defending. He catches that 9 times out of 10. And who knows, the longer the game goes on, 0-0, who knows? But Liverpool were poor, Wolves were poor. And I was with Ben, Brighton away on a Sunday lunchtime. We've got other stuff to be worried about, haven't we? And you are right. It was like the shootout of Forest. As soon as it went to penalties, we were resigned to losing. I think as soon as it was going to a replay, we'd probably all really resigned to losing that as well, haven't we? So just one of those games. I mean, bit of a free hit to try and get into the next round, but we didn't show up. And 2 poor teams, one scored a goal and one didn't. That's how I saw it.
Just to jump on something that you said there, Tyler, as well. And I know I think you were all nodding in agreement as well. It's a good hit from the player, Harvey. Is it Harvey Elliott? But it's a really good hit. But the keeper's positioning, Ben, he's just. I mean, he's had a few wobbles lately, hasn't he, Jose Sarr? But you've got to be looking at him for that. You don't expect a Premier League keeper, a keeper that's in his international squad, to be making that kind of positioning. It went in probably at like waist height.
I mean, look, if you'd have said to Wolves that Liverpool's only chance of the game, because I can't think of too many other things that they actually created, was going to be a shot from Harvey Elliott from 30 yards, then you'd take it every day of the week, wouldn't you? And that it's just a goalkeeper mistake which happens. Particularly that form of mistake, we don't see that often from Star. We'll come on to, what happened at City, which is something that's more of a recurring theme. It was just one of them. Keepers are told to come off their line a lot more and be proactive, and it was a terrible goal to concede. There's just no getting around it. But like we've said, I think there was more important things, and the way that the game was played sort of fed into the fact that I think Lopetegui wasn't overly bothered if Wolves went through.
Yeah, it did feel like that, and I don't know whether that transferred to the players. I'm not saying they weren't trying, because they did try, but they didn't really seem, for a game that they were approaching after a huge injustice, there wasn't really any snarl, and that sort of fed from the manager to the team to the stands. It was all a little bit flat. I mean, me and Nocky had a lovely burger before the game and a pint, and that was probably about as good as it got, to be honest. It was just, we're always going to feel a sense of injustice, because the one day that VAR isn't working, it just so happens when Wolves have scored a perfectly good winner, and then the referee's flags way later after the goal. So
let it go, mate. Come on. It's time.
But what I would say as well is, I don't know whether we'll come on to something like this. I think having a 2-week break after that City game was a lot more important than Wolves beating Liverpool in that replay.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Well, let's talk about that now, Ben.
Yeah, because Lopetegui had those few weeks during the World Cup to get to know, but he hadn't seen players playing competitive matches. He's seen that the 7 or 8 games now. So now it's his team. He knows the players properly. He's not looking at training ground performances. And I think it'd be absolutely vital for the second half of the season now, having this little break.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Just posted a few comments on the screen there for those who are watching. As always, the Wolves Report is recorded live. To get your interactions, your comments, your questions, any decent insults, clean or not, we can have a look at them to get them on the show. It's a bit of interaction. So it is recording live. So yeah, your interactions are appreciated. As always, I drop a tweet out the day before to get some questions in. I've had a great response again this week, so we're going to get, after we've reviewed the 2 games and talked to the transfer window, we'll have a look at those questions. There's some really good points in there. So I don't think we need to talk about that game anymore. It just hurts a little bit going 2 midweek games, going out of both cups, and the season's just on one thing then. But as Ben correctly said, and I think it's right, our main priority is to stay in the Premier League, not having a cup run. And that 2 weeks off, it's an extra 2 weeks of training together, an extra 2 weeks of the new players to bed in. An extra week of putting the hashtag free Joe Gomez up, whatever. It gives us more time to do other stuff. Tyler, we'll go on to you with this next one, and I'm sure you're going to have an opinion on this. Going on to the next game where it finished Manchester City 3, probably could have been a lot more, Wolves 0. Tyler, your take on that performance, and particularly your take on the team that started.
I'll calm down a bit now, so I'll come to a sense of normality that it's a game we probably can't be judged on, and it's a game that isn't going to define our season. I won't figure out the front three for as long as I live, to be honest, in that game. My opponents didn't start, unless there was a nigger who wasn't 100% fit. I won't understand either. I don't think City will have an easy home game all season, to be honest. They didn't have to get out of second gear, and as soon as they scored the first, we might as well all have gone home. The goals we give away are obviously ridiculous again, aren't they? But having sort of slept on it, and yeah, same as Ben, the game's done. The big focus was the 2 weeks, I think, of work to be done. Sarabia got his debut. The midfield 3 looked okay. I thought Collins did well again, apart from the header from Haaland, but he's just a different animal, isn't he? So I don't blame him for that. Again, free hit was used, wasn't it? And that sort of winds me up a little bit, because it's not like we're a League 2 team going, on a giant field. But Everton went there and got a point. They were disciplined. Teams have gone there and got results off them. Brentford went there and won. So that was the bit that I was finding a bit frustrating. But looking in the big scheme of things, that doesn't define our season. Liverpool and onwards does. So it is what it is, really. It was a comfortable win for City in the end.
Okay, when I asked Tyler about it then, and he said he can't understand it. And to be honest, I know Lopetegui is very much a manager of horses for courses, so I don't think we'll see very often getting the same 11. I'd love to be wrong, but I feel like he picks the team for the opposition, as opposed to whereas Nuno was more getting a regular 11, and Bruno, just who knows what Bruno was doing. But anyway, I think we've covered that bit enough. But that front three was probably the front three I wasn't expecting. I get the theory, Hwang's pace, Adama's pace. Raul's got history there with Adama linking up.
Just going for history with Raul.
I don't really know that, but can you put your finger on what I mean? I don't really. This isn't a Lopetegui kicking session, because our points ratio in the last 5 games has been better than it's been all season. So, just your take on that front three and what you think the thinking was.
I'd have rested everyone, if I'm being honest. I didn't think we had much sniff going.
Give them a 3-week rest.
I'd have put the under 23s. I just think it's a game that I don't think Wolves are capable of winning at the moment. I think City are that good and that strong. And when you look at the goals we give away, that's the disappointing thing for me. Is the first one is the only unavoidable goal, because I just think Haaland's a unit. De Bruyne's pinpoint accuracy. Haaland's got a couple of yards to run in and jump on Collins, so that's unavoidable. But the other 2 goals were really poor. In terms of the front three, I just think he was looking for something with a little bit of movement, a little bit of pace, a little bit of dynamism, maybe give him something else to think about. I don't think it really matters what three we put up front. I was all for resting Podence. I think he picks up injuries, doesn't he? He picks up a niggle here and there, so it's important to look after him. He wasn't going to get a great deal of change in that game, so I understand it. You've got to look at these players as well. I mean, if you can get the best out of Adama, we know what he's capable of doing, and if you can get Raul back into it and get him playing football and getting minutes behind him, maybe it does him a little bit of good. But it was always going to be a thankless task whoever played up there, because we were never going to create a great deal against a side like that who were that good and that effective in defending and attacking. So, yeah, I understand why the questions were asked, but at the same time, if you're going to rest a couple and try a couple of players out, for me, that's the game you do it in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I would say, and I'm not going to ask Ben about Raul, because I think we all know that path that's going to take, but one thing, as I think everyone would agree on, I don't think the Wolves midfield was that bad that day, to be honest. I think that's one area of the pitch Wolves didn't look too bad, Ben. I thought, I mean, obviously the penalty is very, very unfortunate for me. But you make contact, you obstruct a player, that's a rule. Well, depending who the referee is, but usually that's a penalty. We'll talk about the Jose Star pass out in a little bit, but that was ridiculous. So, but I felt like when the game was almost gone, Wolves started getting forward a bit more. Sarabia and Podence on the pitch, for me, made a big difference.
Yeah, I think if you're ever going to get a result at a place like the Etihad, everything has to go your way. For example, when the Man City player pulls down Hwang when he's through on goal, if the referee decides that that's a red card, you need that. You also don't need the ref to be booking every single Wolves player on every foul, because the only way Wolves can get a result is by pressing and harrying and being quick to the ball.
Tactical fouls.
And as soon as those pick up bookings in the first 25 minutes, you can't really do that anymore. Kilman got booked for one that for me wasn't even a foul. I don't think
it was a great tackle. I don't understand that at all.
And he was just going around booking every single Wolves player, and suddenly, they're not massive decisions that make it onto match, but it affects the flow of the game, because suddenly you can't play in the same way that you wanted to. And look, like I said, if you're going to get a result there, literally every single thing has to go right. Even when we beat them a couple of years ago, they hit the crossbar a couple of times. Things have to go your way. You have to ride your luck. And Wolves at the minute are just they've just got the opposite of any type of luck going at the minute. It's just ridiculous.
Well, it feels in terms of making their own luck and in terms of 50-50 decisions from the officials as well. It doesn't feel like we're getting anything at all. But just going back to the positive that I thought was a positive, Tyler, I didn't think the midfield three were that bad. I thought when the pressure was off, I thought that was one area of the pitch that Wolves actually looked quite comfortable. It's just the fact for 45 minutes, they had nothing in front of them whatsoever. And when it went forward, it just came back. There was no hold-up. I don't think any of our players beat a man other than Hwang, and I think Hwang's very, very unlucky there. He's very, very unlucky. If that's the other way around, is that a free kick? I don't know. But he's Spanish, man. They've both got arms on each other. Yeah, I think he's unlucky. But yeah, Tyler, the midfield, not too bad.
Yeah, there was certainly signs. The game was done at 3-0 after 60, 70 minutes, but there were certainly signs there of what we will hopefully look forward to when we had the midfield three, Podence, Sarabia, Kuhn. There were good options there, weren't there? But they're good players, aren't they? We've said all along there. There's Nunes. I mean, they're good players that, they could probably hold their own most midfields in the league, really. It's just obviously the other end of the pitch is where we sort of falter. But Lamina looked promising, didn't he? Looked on the press, on the front foot, nice, likes to tackle, which is what we've been looking for. Nunes, if you can carry on sort of picking up and wandering into those spaces. Neves, I'd never say a bad word about him, but there's been a bit of flack lately. Maybe that he sometimes goes a bit deep, or he's not moving the ball quickly enough. And I think that's something I'd like to see him do more because he's got it in his locker. But they're three good footballers, and we're pinning a lot of hope on them, aren't we, for the rest of the season, that they can win more midfield battles than they lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got to stop giving goals away, haven't we? We've got to stop giving
yeah, well, let's. I mean, I think we can forgive Neves for the penalty. I think he's desperate and lucky. If two players cross in the box and the forward goes down, it's always a penalty. We saw it with David Luiz 3 years ago at Molineux. Whether he meant it or not, it's clearly obstructing the man. It's a penalty. He got a red that day. Obviously, there was nothing for Neves on that. It's just a crossing over. But that pass out.
To score against us. Locker's dead right. Teams don't have to work hard and break us down. It was so easy to score against. It's ridiculous, and I don't know how that stops. And I think obviously we'll come on to it, but because of the lack of goals the other end, you're always putting so much pressure on yourself then. And yeah, I'm with you, Knocker. That's what's got to change between now and the season.
How often do a team physically rip us to pieces, though, and just play through us and cut us down and get space behind us? We give goals away. We do it. We seem to do it every week at the minute. Teams aren't working for goals, and when you're in the position we're in, you've got to be better. You can't give sloppy moments away, and we're not getting punished for everyone either. Some of them we're getting away with, but it's a common occurrence at the minute, and it doesn't matter how good the midfield is or what structure we bring in up front. If you're giving daft goals away like that, and you've got a keeper who can't play with his feet, you're going to put yourself in a real pickle if you want to start playing out the back. So hopefully they've spent these 2 weeks really working on the distribution from the back, and we can start just chipping away some of them stupid errors that we're making and turning over possession. We seem to give the ball away more than any other team in the league. It's all the time we give the ball away, we recycle it, we've gone again. It just seems to be a bit of a problem throughout the whole club at the minute.
Just picking up there. Well, what I would say is I would rather these silly mistakes happen against Liverpool and in the Cup and Man City and be experimenting. I think that's certainly something I'm really happy. I don't want mistakes any game, but didn't expect anything from Man City, and I thought Liverpool game was what happened was going to happen. Something we talked about before. We talked about that obviously the new keeper coming in and Sarchik's going to Stoke, and this keeper coming in for an alleged 50 grand, which I think could be a tremendous piece of business. Now, that goal conceded from Jose Sarr, that has been an accident waiting to happen for months. It's happened again and again, and he's got out of trouble a few times, and finally he's been punished for it. Now, I understand the philosophy of playing from the back. I understand trying to install that in the players, and I think Kilman's pretty good on the ball. Collins isn't so bad. I think the fullbacks are comfortable, but in that system, you need a keeper that can play as well. Now, Jose Sarr, statistically, in his first season, was one of the best shot stoppers in European football. Fantastic. But that suited that style of play more. However, now, when he's forced to play out, how many of those mistakes can we afford to have, Ben?
Yeah, like it's been mentioned, I think the biggest issue is every Wolves mistake's amplified because we only score one goal every 3 games or something. So a mistake that Wolves make is completely different to a mistake that almost every other Premier League club make. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I understand that there's like trepidation when I think the problem is, and I do it as well, like unconsciously, when the ball goes to Sarr now, I automatically like close my eyes and just hope that it's going to end up at a Wolves player's feet because, like you say, he's probably gotten away with like 6, 7, 8.
Yes, he's got away with a lot
the last couple of seasons. I think Lopetegui's going to keep doing it because in my opinion, I think Lopetegui thinks Wolves are going to be good enough to stay up this year, and he wants to start putting his ethos mark on this team. And I personally think there'll be a different keeper at the start of next season. I don't think Sarr will be the starting keeper, but I think they've got to stick with it because Wolves need to start keeping the ball because we'll come on to it, but Wolves' biggest strength is their midfield, and we can't bypass it by Sarr launching it up to centre forward. That particularly when it's Raul and he's just losing the ball and it's coming straight back.
Uh-huh.
It's it's just going to come with error. Wolves have just got to be patient and understand that errors come. And like you say, they're better off happening against Man City when the game's already on its way to being gone than if it happens in the first minute against, if it had happened against West Ham or something, then it's catastrophic, isn't it? So I just think it's going to keep happening. So we've got to accept that that's the way Wolves going to play.
Just on the keeper topic, we talked off air about Bentley that arrived from Bristol City for an alleged 50 grand, which is an incredible fee. He was he was Bristol City's player of the season last year, 29 years old, apparently very good with his feet. I don't really know a lot about him. That's just the research I've done. Is he purely a backup, or from now in, can he be challenging Jose Sarr? Nocky?
I mean, you'd think not, but the only thing that's got me sort of questioning it is the club are making a big fuss of him. There's a lot of media. There seems to be a lot of attention on him at the moment, which is something they did with Gibbs White, and they were trying to get him to sign a new deal. And we haven't seen much about Sarabia, but we seem to be seeing a lot about Bentley. So I don't think it will happen, but you can almost get a little inkling that maybe it might not be the start of next season that we've got a new keeper. He may have a look at him this year, because it just seems to be that there's a lot more attention on this keeper than you normally have for a backup keeper. I mean, normally we sign players, and unless they're going to storm to the first team, you very rarely see anything of them in terms of the media, but they're just making a little bit of a fuss of him.
Tyler, if we've let Sarchuk go to Stoke, that's telling me that the club have got confidence in Bentley to come in. So if he's a backup, surely he's good enough to be challenging the keeper.
Oh, I fully expect him to be challenging him. I think they've done it. It's a shrewd bit of business. He's 29. He's got over 400 league games under his belt. He seems experienced.
Captain as well.
Yeah, captain of the club. He's a character, obviously. I think Matt Hobbs described him as a leader. I think he's been brought in to genuinely challenge Sarr for number one spot. I don't think he's not come here to play second fiddle, sit on the bench and take his paycheck by the looks of it. And I know it's only interviews, and like Mark said, there does seem to be a lot of fuss, but he seems impressive. And at that age, he'll know his game. He'll be in himself as a goalkeeper. It's a no-lose deal for Wolves, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's basically no 30, and they've signed an experienced goalkeeper to push the guy who, let's be honest, has probably been too comfortable for the last, 6, 9, 12 months.
Scenario-based question, Ben. In recent weeks, since Lopetegui's come in, how much work, save-wise, has Jose Sarr had to do? Has he been more busy playing football out from the back, or has he been more busy making saves?
I think there's been a couple of bit. There was a big save at Everton, I think.
Yeah,
if I remember. But yeah, you're right. He hasn't had to make that many saves, because Wolves have looked a lot more solid. Just on Bentley, I think that the key quote for me when they were talking about him was that they were sort of saying about his character, and that he was essentially could do what John Ruddy's been doing, which is being like a leader in the dressing room and not necessarily playing. And that said quite a lot to me about what they're anticipating him to be. I would be very surprised if he starts a Premier League game and Sarr isn't injured. That's my opinion.
But how long do you give it, Ben? How many mistakes do you give him?
I mean, he wasn't starting for Bristol City when he left.
Yeah, he wasn't starting because he fell out with the manager and he wasn't signing a new contract. So he was offered the new deal. He said no, thank you. He wouldn't sign. So that's what I think Wolves have got. I don't know if it's how true it is. I think it'd be more than that. But the alleged 50 grand
in a list of problems, though, I don't think Sarr is in the top 4 or 5 for me. I still think there's a lot more things Wolves need to sort out.
I think
he is, because
at the moment there's a problem.
Lopetegui's whole ethos is to play out the back. If you've got a keeper that can't do that, he's affecting the whole system.
You mentioned West Ham. He passed it straight to Bowen. If you don't win that game, different ball game. We said, didn't we? We called it a few weeks ago. He'll be on the radar. If he can't play the way he wants him to, he'll be gone. Like Joe Hart was. Like Liverpool did spend 80 million on a keeper. I'm not saying Bentley.
I like comparing us to Man City and Liverpool. That's good, Tyler. Keep going.
But Joe Hart was a cool hero, Man City favourite. He was out the door because he couldn't play with his feet.
Yeah.
And this is how he wants to play. He won't take any prisoners, will he? You don't manage Spain, Real Madrid.
Yeah, my point, as you could probably see, I was trying to engineer, Ben, is that there's a keeper that's comfortable with his feet that can play football out the back, allegedly. Yeah. Are they going to be seeing that in training as the most important thing, or do you go with the elite shot stopper? Yeah, I think it's a really interesting scenario. I'm the same as you. I don't think you'll throw it up in the air that much. But as I think Nocky or Tyler said then, mistake against West Ham to Bowen didn't cost us, could have cost us in a massive game. Ridiculous mistake when the game was over against Man City. You can't do that every other game. That ratio is unacceptable because it's going to cost a goal every couple of weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was pushing him, if he saw that if he's a leader from the back, because there's not really, I know we talked about leaders not being at Wolves anymore and certain people with huge voices, but if this guy's got a huge mouth and he's balling out and he's leading from the back and he can play football, is that more important than being an elite shot stopper?
I don't think so, personally. I'd take the good keeper over the good shouter, and like as I would take a good defender over a good centre back over a good shouter, and I've made.
But I mean, yeah, but I'm trying to take into consideration he can play. He can play a bit as well. But yeah, absolutely.
Do you know that though, or are you taking that? And he's done all right at Bristol City when they've passed.
No, I'd read that he wanted to play out. I hadn't done loads of research, but I'd read various people say he was comfortable with his feet, which is far more than Jose Sarr.
When we signed Sarr, though, that was what we were told, that he was better with his feet.
Yeah, but he still was an upgrade on the previous keeper that was the worst kicker. He was terrified of having the football.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, great debate. But it's Bentley, 50 grand. Let's hope he's a Rolls Royce of a keeper. But anyway, moving on. Sorry,
we speak that low up now. Christ.
That's we've had no game the weekend. What do you expect? One thing I would say, Nocky, about the Man City game is from looking like there was absolutely no penetration whatsoever. You could say the game had gone, but all three of those forward subs made a difference. Wolves looked like that. They were lucky not to get a goal. Yeah, the game was gone. Maybe Man City had taken the foot off the gas, but Badence, Sarabia, they made a difference, Nocky.
Yeah, I mean, Sarabia in particular, he had a couple of opportunities and he missed them, which is fine. I think more important at this stage of his Wolves career that he's getting into those positions, because a lot of the time we see players like Hwang, he doesn't very often get into goal-scoring positions, whereas Sarabia seems to have a good instinct for where the ball was going to go. I like Cunha. I still don't think he's a number 9. I think he will play wide with either Podence or Sarabia. I don't think he plays for the middle, but interchanging, they did well. There was some good movement. For me, I think Podence is a player who's probably one of the first names on the team sheet at the moment. He looks he looks like he's in the best form of his career. I mean, you look at the goal he scored against Villa when he danced through. He just seems to be really enjoying his football now. So he's the first name, and it's 2 others really. But you could see the difference in quality when we had those 3 up front as opposed to what we'd had before. We started looking a little bit more dangerous. Didn't create a great deal, but we had a couple of moments, which is more than we've managed for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
isn't it, when you play your best players?
You're saying that, Tyler, weren't you? I mean, horses for courses. I'd rather them get it wrong against Man City than anyone else, but absolutely. Right, then let's move away from Man City and Liverpool, where we scored no goals, got no points, and we're great at the cup because that was fun.
Cracking poddy so far.
Thanks, lads. Thank you.
We managed to go yet.
You are listening and watching episode 51 of the Wolves Report with Mirror Football's Ben Husband, Mark Knott, Chris Tyler, and myself, Ryan Lester. Let's move on to the January transfer window. Business so far, not sure we'll get any more. Cunha, Lamina, Sarabia, Dawson, Bentley, Gomez. Outgoings in terms of loans. Fabio going from Anderlecht to BSV. Hoover going from Anderlecht to Stoke, and Sarchik's going to Stoke. Ben, I know you had something to say on the transfer window. I think when we spoke earlier in the week, your take on the Wolves transfer window so far?
I think it's been couldn't have gone any better as far as I'm concerned. And I know what will come back. And my response to that is, if Wolves had announced Gomez on Christmas Day, like we announced Cunha, and then it had taken until the 30th for a deal for Cunha to be finalised, and that was your forward signing, would Wolves fans still be screaming for like Michail Antonio on deadline day? I feel like the order of the signings has changed the narrative. Cunha's essentially played 60 minutes in the Premier League as a number 9. He played, maybe a little bit more than that, because he played a bit against Man City when the game was dead as well, didn't he? But he started against West Ham, and I still think he's not Raul from 2018 or whatever, but he's a modern centre forward that can interchange with the other forward players. Wolves are already locked into so much money in Jimenez and Costa. For me, I would be stunned if they go and stick 100 grand a week into Antonio, or people are annoyed at not getting Ings, who's on 130 grand a week and can't.
Injured for a month.
Exactly. Wolves can't panic now. They'll get a centre forward in the summer that can be their new focal point, but Wolves can't lock themselves into something that's going to inhibit them moving forward. And I think they've played this. They've played it as well as they possibly could. They said they wanted 6 players. They've got 6. And, if we're including Bentley as someone that can play, that's 6 players that will impact the start, that can impact the starting 11. For me, it could be the best window since we've been promoted.
I think so. I mean, I think the Dawson is something we could flirt with in the summer. Obviously, there was a bit of politics going on with, I think, Villa and Southampton and West Ham that stopped that happening. Gomez is going to be, and we'll talk about him in a minute, going to be a cult hero before he's even kicked a ball. Sarabia, 20 goals last season, 9 assists, 4.5 million. And Lamina, all did like what I've seen, put a great tackle late on in a Wolves win over West Ham, and played quite well at Man City, put a good ball in the box as well, very busy. Nocky, your take on the window so far?
I agree with Ben, but I still want a 9. And I know what you're saying. I'd like Antonio, not a big fan. There's Victor Gyökeres at Coventry. I think he could come and do a decent job for us. I think there's players out there. My concern is, and yes, we've got interchanging forwards. I still think we need someone to link it all together in that number 9 position. I think Kuna's best moments at Wolves is when he's been delivering from a wide position. That's where I see him playing.
2 great assists.
2 great assists, but from wide positions. Same with Podence, is a wide player. Hwang's never going to be a number 9 ever. He's just not that sort of player.
About a month ago, you wouldn't even call him a footballer, so.
Well, yeah, but to be fair to him, he's improved for me. I think he's looked better and he's earned his shirt.
The squad's improved under Lopetegui, for sure.
I know Tyler disagrees, but for me, I think he's earned his shirt. Whether he keeps it is a different story. But I still think we need a 9. Unless we can get Raul and Costa, I don't think we've solved the goal scoring issue.
They're gone.
But we haven't solved the goal scoring issue for me, I don't think. Maybe prove wrong, be happy to be proved wrong. I just don't think we have.
Tyler?
Yeah, I'm sort of in the middle of both. Like, I agree with what both Ben and Mark have said. I'm with you, Ben. I don't see him spending money on a striker. But and as you all know, I'm not Fabio Silva's biggest fan. But surely, if we've got someone like that on our books that we can bring back in the squad, and surely he comes in ahead of Jimenez and Costa. That's the one I can't quite get.
Was it 9 goals this season so far, Ben, for Fabio, is it?
Yeah. And I said at the start of the year, loaning him out, I said in August on this, that's the right move for him if we brought in a replacement. We know what happened with Sasa, that's fine, that's history. But if we can't go and spend 100 grand a week on a striker, we've got one on our books that would probably fit this sort of system, this fluidity, this fluid 3 quite well. That's the only bit I can't get my head around. For him to then shorten the loan at Anderlecht, to then go back out, that's the bit I don't quite get.
I think Anderlecht were playing quite negative football, and they're not the Anderlecht they probably were 10, 15 years ago. They're middle, bottom third kind of team now.
Why are we caring about Anderlecht?
No, what I'm trying to say is the negative football. So he's gone somewhere now. He's gone from Europa Conference to Europa League football in a better standard of league. So the next step is development. So I get what you're saying, Tyler, but I also understand he's had half a season at a league he's done quite well, 9 goals before Christmas, and now he's got an opportunity to go in the Dutch league, which is a far better league than where he's playing in Anderlecht.
But of the options we've got, I think we're also the same. Him, Costa or Jimenez, who would you all have in your matchday squad? I'm not saying he starts every game.
I think purely in terms of mobility, and he's a player for me that when I've seen him playing cup games with Podence, that little one-touch football with a narrow football forward in the future, I think it's going to work for Fabio at Wolves. Could that be now? Maybe. They obviously don't think so because they put him out back again, which I hope he can get. If he gets another 9 goals second half of the season in the Dutch league, he'll have had an amazing season and he'll be ready to come back and compete for his place next season. But just moving away from Fabio, I'm kind of with Ben. I don't think we'll get another forward. I know you guys think we should, but
no, I don't think we will. I think we should, but I don't think we will.
So hypothetically, if Wolves were to sign another striker, how do you get Cunha into the side when they've just paid 40 million for him? Because you're going to want to start Sarabia, you're going to want to start Vents on the other side. You're going to need to play Neves, Nunes, and one other. So you're basically saying that £43 million signing was pointless?
No, because I'm playing the other side of Podence, and then you've got competition for places in the wide attacking areas.
So no Sarabia?
Not starting, no. But
you can't start 11 players though, Ben, can you?
Your best players get in the team, don't they? And then you need your options from the bench. And what we've found since we've had Lopetegui come in, we're starting to impact games for substitutions. So for me, you can't have too many good options on the bench. So if Sarabia's on the bench or Kuna's on the bench, you've got a lot of football to play between now and the end of the season. You're going to need all those players. So for me, the stronger, the bigger the squad, the better.
What I would say in terms of Kuna, I don't mind if he doesn't score goals between now and the end of the season, because we've already seen he will provide. He will get in those positions he provides. Now, if you give Sarabia chances, he's going to score goals. Podence has found a position now. He's in the goal scoring ratio form of his career that's ever been. I think those three linking together with the two inverted men inside inside Kuna that can drop deep, go left, go right, as well as the fullbacks going on. I can see goals. I know people say you need a 9. I genuinely believe those three. You can back me up on this if you want, Ben, but I genuinely believe there's goals in those front three.
Well, I just think that Lopetegui's not stupid. He knows that Wolves' biggest issue is the fact they don't score goals. His number one target for this window was getting Cunha in. Like Hobbs said as much, that he was banging the door down for him from the first minute that he's got here. Essentially, when they're talking about targets, he was the player they wanted in. He's the player that they went and got as soon as they could, as soon as the window opened. And it's difficult because he's joined the side that don't score goals, so he's not naturally going to come in and score, 3 or 4 goals in his first 5 games, because that would mean, Wolves are scoring as a team, 12 in 20 Premier League games. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
It's amazing that Wolves are out the relegation zone, to be honest, with those Connor numbers, but
he looks a good player, though. I mean, I'm not.
He's a footballer. He's a footballer.
I think he looks a quality addition. I just think that we will get more out of him in one of the wide attacking positions. That's just my opinion. If he plays through the middle and gets 8 goals from now at the end of the season, I'm more than happy to put my hands up and eat some humble pie. But I just think his best position for me is going to be in those wide areas, because he looks a really clever footballer who can find a pass.
Do you think, though, Nocky, with the likes of Kuna, with Sarabia and with Podence, all players that are quite fluid, that can play left, right or centre, will see a lot more movement. And as opposed to a static number 9 that's tap-ins for the far post, you're going to see 3 players who are interchanging a lot more.
Yeah, I absolutely think you will, yeah. But I still think you need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. And that's something that we have been lacking. I mean, Podence has shown signs of it this season. I think he's our top scorer, isn't he? He's got 5 goals, 5 or 6 goals, something like that. So he's showing signs of it. I don't see Hwang getting more than 1 or 2 between now and the end of the season. Cunha is a complete
starts or goals.
Yeah, he needs time to settle. I think you won't see the best of him until next season. Sarabia is the one that really interests me, because he could be an absolute little master stroker. He could come in at that price. He could end up scoring 4 or 5 goals, and that could make all the difference. But I'm just old-fashioned, I suppose. I just like to see a big bomber in the middle who can just finish these chances that we're creating, because we just seem to have those opportunities, but how many times do you see us attacking and then Raul ends up on the right wing, or we've got no one in the area, we're bursting down and Traore gets into a crossing position and there's Podence at the far post, and that's all we've got. I just want someone to do the horrible job, really, I suppose. I
know it's not really in their games. Well, it was last season with Núñez, but if it's a 4-3-3 and let's say it's going to be Lamina on the right and Núñez on the left, we're going to need some more goals from those guys as well. We're going to need one of them two to break into the box and get in between for a tap in for the edge of the box to drill one home, because our goals from running players from midfield it's been 0 for years. Now we've got players with engines. I'm not saying I'm expecting 5-10 goals from them, but those two need to start providing, especially if Neves going to tuck in between the centre backs. Those two have got an opportunity and they need to start adding goals as well, Tyler.
Yeah. I think Ben made I agree. I think it would be Cunha, Podence, and Sarabia. But you're all or nothing there. That's clearly your best front three. Adama, let's be honest, has flattered to the seed this season. Hwang's output's the same. Knocker's right. It's still creating that Jimenez. I mean, crikey, he just needs to go, doesn't he? Let's be honest. Costa's obviously picking up niggles and he hasn't worked out. So there's 4 players there that are nowhere near up to it tonight. I agree. Podence, Sarabia, and Cunha.
I mean, we are forgetting about Neto as well.
Neto could come back, but again, his output's been poor the last 2 or 3 seasons. Yeah. Whether we like it or not, it's been poor.
No, I agree.
But
I think
what
we can all agree. Sorry, right. I think we can all agree that the signings that we brought in have all improved the squad.
Yeah,
That's
it's good
thing
window.
to do.
well, I was just
We're
looking
not
at
signed for the sake of. We've signed players who can make us better, which is obviously the key.
potentially at some stage. I'd say as the season closes in, I'd say 5 of those players. I'd say 4 of those players will definitely be starting, and then maybe sometime, maybe Bentley, and then Gomez as well. But I'd say 4 of those: Dawson, Sarabia, Lamina, and Kuna. I think when Wolves get going into the run of fixtures after the Liverpool game, I'd expect them all to be starting.
Do you
think Dawson's come in to start?
I think so.
Got a word in his place and dislodge one of them to pair.
I think so. I think, well, it's a nice problem to. It's a nice problem to have. Who would have dropped at the moment?
Yeah,
It's easy, I think. I don't think it's a debate.
this will be interesting and see what he says.
It's definitely Kilman. I don't even think it's a decision. If you drop one of the two, it's Kilman 100. I think Kilman's been rank average this season, and I think Collins is younger, better.
Collins has developed the last few games.
be.
He has grown the last
Will
few
be
games.
a much better player than Max Kilman. A much, much better player. I don't think there's a question for me. Honestly,
Podcast absolutely stunned.
I can get pelters for it. I literally don't think there's a debate.
No,
You're right. We're as much as we have favourites. I'm a big fan of Max Kilman. I know we've talked about this in the past, Ben, and we talked about like peak Willy Bolly, Max Kilman, and we've debated it. But we all have our favourites, and we love it, and we have different ideas of it. But at the end of the day, I don't really care who plays as long as Wolves win. And for me, with Dawson's experience, his ability in both boxes, I think he has to start. I think we haven't spent. I mean, in modern football, was it 3.3 million, 3.5 million we spent on him? It's not a lot of money, but he's not come to sit here and be a sub player. He was starting for West Ham before he got dropped for the game when we beat them. So I'd fully expect him to be in the team very soon.
I suppose anything Kilman gives you, and whether it's relevant or not, is the balance, isn't it? But that's not enough of a reason to play. He gives you the left foot, right foot combination, isn't he? But I don't know.
Quick question for you then, Tyler. Would it be a fair? There isn't many teams worse than Wolves, to be honest. But if you're playing a team that's superior to you, would you want the better defender in Dawson? Where if there's a team where you want to play more football and expected to dominate the ball, would you play Kilman?
I don't know. We spent the first 10 minutes saying we're going to be playing out from the back and being all sexy. So Dawson, I don't think fits that criteria, but he fits the criteria of being a bit of a snorter in a relegation scrap and being useful in both boxes. So I don't know. It goes against the grain a little bit, doesn't it? Signing a 30-odd plus English centre back, it's something new for us, isn't it? He gets in my team. I think I'm putting him straight in, but.
I think Dawson was in the Europa team of the season last season, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So he's definitely still got something. But isn't it a nice problem to have? Instead of being, it's Kilman, it's Collins, and that's it. It's a nice problem to have. And if anything, it will push Collins on, it will push Kilman on. You've got experience, and it'll either, if they don't play well, you've got a very experienced centre back to come in and have a go as well.
The Liverpool lineup will be interesting, won't it? Like Ben said, he's had 2 weeks to work. He knows who's capable of what. There's an argument to say this team on Liverpool that he picked Saturday is probably his first favourite 11 he can probably pick. So it would be very interesting to see who he goes for. Yeah,
definitely. I'd definitely have a go. I mean, they're going to be hurting and vulnerable again, but they were last time. So interesting. Just before we move on to the questions, just talking about the loans out. We talked about Fabio to Anderlecht. Hoover. Disappointed at PSV, and he's gone to Stoke. I mean, for me, that's a shop window move. I know people have sort of had a go at me on Twitter for that, saying he's a bit too young, but I don't see a future for Hoover. And I also think the same for Sarchik. I think he's a fantastic shot stopper, but again, he's not someone that's going to play football out the back. Ben, any thoughts on those loans?
Yeah. I think Wolves have clearly seen enough of what they've seen of Hoover. Do you know what? I struggle a lot because I apply a Bruno Lage tax to every single Wolves player, and I just don't think you can judge them exclusively off playing under him because players have improved. So, I mean, you looked at Nunes for the first 3 months of the season, and I was thinking, why was he playing in the Champions League last season? And then suddenly you go, oh, yeah, it's because he's a Champions League player that was playing under a PE teacher. And And he large rubbed players up the wrong way as well. I know that for a fact. He rubbed a lot of players up the wrong way.
Absolutely, he did.
And he was a kid, and he's been brought up. The problem is he's been brought up in like Liverpool, and he played for Ajax before that. So he's like been brought up as football royalty essentially. And I think this has been a bit of a reality check for him. And if it wasn't, then coming up here to Stoke will definitely be a reality check for him. But,
Stoke in February. That'll be
I don't want to rule him out yet, because there's a reason why Liverpool rated him so highly when he was a kid as well.
They did sell him though, didn't they? I mean, they might have rated him, but they did let him go for £9 million. That was
about 7 million too much.
I just think he's. I don't think he's got the attitude for it. I think he switches off, and we saw it when Liverpool beat us 1-0. And
yeah,
I think it was 8-0. He had Salah in his pocket for 90 minutes. It took Hoover about 40 seconds to completely undo all that good work and get caught up field having a shot when he didn't need to. And I just don't think he's got that element of. I just don't think he's got a football brain about him. He just looks clumsy to me. So he may prove us wrong. I really hope he does, but I don't know. I think he's one of them that we've absolutely been caught out on.
Me too. Moving on to the questions. Thank you so much for the questions I've put in. I've put in as many as I can. This one's a great one to get the ball rolling, to keep it on with topic. Now, I think we would all agree across the podcast that it's probably Kuna, Podence, and Sarabia. Are we all unanimous that that's our front three?
Yeah.
I think.
What do you mean? No, who are you putting instead of them three?
No, you're probably
Nucky,
is at the moment, unless we get. I still think we need number 9. Now I said that, but what we've got at the minute,
what we've got now,
get Stevie Ball back.
I'd take him now. He'd get more goals in a row.
Oh my goodness, mate!
With what we've got, yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah,
Nucky. There's always one, isn't there? Midfield three. Then for me, the midfield three at this moment in time that played at Man City is our front three, our midfield three. Are we all in agreement on that, gents?
Yeah.
Now the tricky one, I think the back four is the only one up in the air with Dawson coming in, and I'm with Ben on this one. I would drop Kilman and put Dawson in. Tyler, Knocker, your thoughts?
I think I'd still probably just give Kilman the benefit. I still think Aitnor is the better left back.
Agreed.
I think Semedo and Collins, but I don't really I like Bueno, but I don't sort of see why he keeps getting the nod every time.
I don't think he's made a mistake, mate. I don't recall him making a mistake.
I don't recall Aitnor making one, and he does give his winger a lot of room, a lot of time. So it's not a criticism. I'm not saying he's not done well. I just personally think Aitnor is still better than him.
Nice problems to have, though, isn't it? Nice that we've actually got options all over the pitch. But yeah, Rod Jones, thank you very much for your question. Question from Wayne: how do you rate this transfer window out of 10? Let's just have a quick number then. Let's fire through these questions. Nocky, out of 10, this transfer window.
7.
Oh, Scrooge. Tyler.
On paper, it looks a 9.
Ben.
I was excited in the summer, and that went pear-shaped. So.
Yeah, we've got an elite manager there now, mate, not the PE teacher. Ben?
Yeah, Sam, as annoying as it would be to Nocky, I would probably give it a number 9.
Yeah, it's got to be a hat-trick of 9s just to annoy Nocky. Wayne, thank you for your continued contribution to the Wolves Report. You are listening and watching to episode 51 of the Wolves Report with Football Mirror's Ben Husband, Mark Knott, Chris Tyler, and myself, Ryan Lester. Next question from Mike Allen. How have Brighton and Brentford got it right? Got it so right, and we've got it so wrong. Now, I think in terms of just running the football club and decisions and having a plan, I think Mike's talking about then, and that's probably quite a deep question to go into. I'm hoping now, Mike, that Wolves have turned the corner. They've ditched the one man that does all the recruitment. They've got a manager that's got his own thoughts and ideas. So Brighton and Brentford have done fantastic in terms of their recruitment, in terms of their quick turnaround of the manager, especially with when Potter went, the quick turnaround there. Brentford are next level XG. They turn 500 grand footballers into 10 million pound footballers, and they're both brilliant at what we do. Neither of them are Wolves, but I think Wolves have turned the corner in what they're doing. Would everyone agree?
I'm not sure I fully agree with that statement, though, if I'm being
Go on.
completely honest. I mean, let's not pretend we've been awful since we got promoted. We had 2 7th-place finishes. We got to the Europa League quarter-final and FA Cup semi-final. And up till last season, every time I saw Brighton, they absolutely stumped the ground out. They were horrible to play. The
Glenn Murray up front, get in there.
They were time wasting. They were booting the ball out of play. So, yeah, they're having a decent season now. They've had a couple of good seasons, but I don't think you can say we've got it really wrong and they've got it really right. I just think that this is where we are this season, but I'm not sure it's a disaster at Wolves at all. I don't agree with
No, I'm not saying it's a disaster, but in terms of that, they seem to have a recruitment plan and a strategy for a player or manager going. Both teams are ready for that kind of scenario and have been successfully doing it better than Wolves had probably the last 24 months. I would say that's probably fair, Nocky.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of luck involved, isn't there? I mean, if it works, it works, but you never know what you're going to get until they actually turn up, do you? I mean, we signed Guedes, who was sensational over in Spain in terms of beer, and he looks like he's got one leg. So you can't predict how your signs are going to turn up. It's just pot luck at the time, isn't it?
Thanks for your question, Mike.
I think there's a hell of a lot of good work put in by scouting teams. The work Brighton have done to buy players and then sell them for 50, 60 million pounds.
Players we've never heard of. Ben's probably heard of some of them, but I haven't heard of half these players before they come to England.
They're on about this Cedo, is it 60, 70, 80 million? It's phenomenal. I think fair play to them. Off the pitch, they've got it absolutely spot on.
Very, very good. Okay.
Yeah, I think, obviously they're doing really well in their business, but I think we've done pretty well. We picked up Neves for, 15 million? Jota was he about 10 million, something like that?
There was a big gap there, wasn't there? We got all these players and there was a big gap for a few years when after the transfer window where we got Raul, Johnny.
It went tits up, didn't it?
Yeah, it didn't go great after that. Mike, thanks so much for your question. There was 2 questions merged into one here. Greg Hickman, regular contributor to the show, evening, Greg and Matt Wolf. Do you think a number 9 should have been a priority? And are you surprised that Adama, Johnny, and Raul haven't left yet? Go on, Knocker, fill your boots.
Yeah, I think it should have been. To be totally honest, not to be proved wrong, but I do think it should have been. I'm not surprised Adama, Johnny, and Raul haven't gone because I think we spoke about this on the last podcast. So I don't think we should be getting rid of players that we don't need to get rid of. We need that squad. We need players who can affect the game. I think all 3 of them can affect the game for us. And if we were to lose a fullback and we've got rid of Johnny, we're in a little bit of stuck. So for me, I don't think we should be getting rid of them players.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement with that. I think it's a case of let's keep the squad now. Let's stay up, and then let's reassess and shake the squad up in the summer for me. So you don't need to get rid of those players. If Wolves stay up, which I think they will, I think all those players will be gone and probably more. Yeah. I think there'll be huge changes. 3 in midfield are probably going to go. Those 3 on there, the squad will look very different, and I think for the better as well. Greg and Matt, thank you for your contribution. This feels like a Ben question. Kev Taylor asks, has the Mendes era gone?
I don't know, because Lopetegui is still a Mendes client and stuff and has links to Mendes, but I think he's brave enough to not be gagged by Mendes, which I think Nuno and Bruno Lage were both puppets of Mendes. Whereas I think Lopetegui, because of what he's done in the past, has established a reputation where he's got his own people. So he's got they've not called him a sporting director, whatever role they gave him, technical advisor to the sporting director or some lengthy talk they gave Frank Gargarasa, but he is Lopetegui's man now, and I think for the first time Wolves have realised that it's not sustainable what they've been doing. We were talking about Brentford and Brighton, and Nocky's absolutely bang on. Neither of those clubs have finished in 7th and done what Wolves have done. The problem is what Wolves did wasn't sustainable. To only buy from one agent and not have the capabilities to go for the top of his client list. So there was always a ceiling that Wolves were going to hit, and it just happened that they hit it really quickly. What Brighton and Brentford are doing is you can hit on players that go above what Brighton are ever going to be able to reach. And this is a better way. It's just a better way of doing business. And I think the South American market does a lot as well. Signing someone like Gomez, because hopefully from what people say is that he could be a player that's too good for Wolves, really, that they've snapped up. What a nice problem to have. which is what Wolves did at the start of the Mendes era, because Neves was too good to ever play for Wolves. But the problem was there was always a ceiling, and that was always my biggest concern. You can look at his client list, and there was always a point where Wolves would get to where you go, they can't get any better, because if you're just sticking with that one person, then they're going to be unless you sign Ronaldo, because he was I think I looked at one point, it was like Ronaldo and James Rodriguez and players like that. Wolves weren't going to get at the time, so there was always that level that they hit, and they hit it quicker than most people expected. So.
Kev Taylor, thank you so much for your question. This is an interesting one because of social media this week. Gillo says, can we move on from Cody? Great leader, but we've moved on, and no need for the slating he gets just for likes. That's a really good point. Now, I think correct me if any of you could jump in, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think there was not a huge divide, but there was a minority of the fan base that didn't want Cody to go, regardless of his ability. They're like, oh, you shouldn't go, can't get Cody do that. I still think it was the right decision. If you're moving to a back four for Conor Cody to do, great human, did some fantastic stuff for Wolves. However, then the national media, you excluded, Ben, jumped on heavily and slated Wolves. Cody this, Cody that, and there's almost now like, well, I want my club to be right. I want to be proven right. I want Wolves to finish above Everton, and as to show the club made it right. Obviously, then he got a bit personal. Well, I think with one of his family members put something about Lage being sacked and quite celebrating that. I didn't like that because I know Cody has no control over that, but technically he's still being paid by Wolves because he's still a Wolves player. That didn't sit well for me. And I just think it created a divide amongst the fan base. That's my take on it, Chillo. So for me, it's the Wolves badge over Cody every day, as I'm sure it is for you as well. I just want Wolves to be proven right and Wolves to do better than Everton. That's just the way I'm wired, guys.
What's the clamour for him to come back, though? I don't understand it. They're below us in the league. They're conceding horrendous goals.
Well, I don't think I'd say the majority of the fan base. I think that it's in the minority, but there are people that, because he was a good leader, because of what he'd done. But football's moved on. I don't think now.
John DeWolf was a great leader, but I don't want him playing at centre back.
We should get him on the podcast.
It goes past in stages. Cody did a fantastic job for us. I haven't got a bad word to say about him. He was brilliant for Wolves. He was a massive part of that promotion season. But he's not good enough to be where we want to go now, in my opinion. I don't think he's set the world on fire at Everton. I don't think their fans are a big fan of him if you look at social media. So to bring him in will be a ginormous step backwards as far as I'm concerned. I think we get to the end of the season, he finishes his loan. If Everton don't want him, we send him somewhere else. I don't see him ever coming back into the Wolves fold. Tyler,
that bridge has that bridge been burnt now? Is that ship sailed?
Yeah, I just think there's a bigger piece here. Well, for whatever reason, Wolves fans really struggle to let people go. It's Cody, it's Jota, it's Doherty. I saw a tweet yesterday. Would you have Doherty back? I mean, why is it even? We just can't let ex-players go. We can't let them go and be successful because we're jealous of it, and then we can't let them go and do what Cody because I don't know why, but he's gone. He's not here anymore. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want to fight for his place. He went at the first opportunity. On with Knocker. Goes down as a bit of a legend for me and what he did as a captain, but those days are gone. But Wolves fans just need to let it go.
Yeah, I agree.
You raised a good point there about Jota as well. I mean, people were furious when we sold Jota. He's injured again. He's always injured, and he's not a player we could afford to carry with our squad.
He wasn't in the team. He wasn't in the whole team.
No, he was a sub. He was a sub in the Europa League quarter-final, wasn't he? And that's when he was getting close to that transfer.
So for me, I just think the decisions we made with Jota, I think we were right to sell him because you can't rely on him, and we couldn't afford to carry a player with that value that wasn't going to play football for us.
What I'm saying, okay, I think it would have felt better if we'd have spent the money better. It's the way we spent it afterwards, and I think that's what probably hurts because it was the money was reinvested. At the time, it didn't look great for Semedo. Fabio Silva, it was too early, so the over recruitment or the backfilling wasn't great, was it? And that probably made things feel worse.
That can happen though, can't it? I mean, it'll be the same when we sell Neto. I personally think Neto will go at the end of this season. I think there'll be the same kind of furious arguments about that we shouldn't be getting rid of him.
He's going to have to season if he does.
So for me, I think you've got to make these decisions based on what's best for the club, and carrying a player who continuously gets injured, who has purple patches of 6 or 7 games where he's brilliant and then doesn't score for the next 7 or 8, it's not something we can afford to carry as far as I'm concerned.
Great point, Chillo. Some good debate and opinions raised from the panel. So yeah, thank you so much for your contribution. Ben, you can have this one. I think you've kind of covered it really. But Richard Holmes, regular contributor. Good evening, Richard. Could Dawson mean a back five, or if not, who drops out?
I still think Lopetegui will be fluid in terms of what he does in game. I think we'll still see Wolves drop to 5, and I think you'll probably see the person that comes on isn't Totti Gomez. It's the defender that isn't on the pitch out of Dawson, Kilman, and Collins. So I still think we'll see that. Wolves won't go to a back 5 as a shape permanently. I just don't see that happening. And as I've said, for me, it's Kilman that would drop out if you had Dawson. I would probably still stick with Collins and Kilman for now. And then Dawson can come in at a later date.
Any advances on that, Nocky, Tyler?
No, I completely agree with that. I think Ben's spot on.
Right then, gents. Massive game on Saturday. Sad to report that Liverpool lost to Brighton today. But you've also got to congratulate Brighton. Playing a man down from start to finish and still winning the game 2-1 is quite some achievement. That's congratulations to Brighton. But
they've been knocked out of that cup now, isn't it, Liverpool?
It's twice now. Twice in 3 weeks. It's incredible. Massive game on Saturday. I feel like the atmosphere, which I haven't really talked about, although it's been a big talking point on social media this week. I think Molineux will be a different place on Saturday. I think there'll be more zest. I think if Gomez is all done, I think he'll be on the bench. I can't see him not being on the bench. And as we're all unanimous on, I think it'll probably be Wolves' strongest team from the off to give us a chance. Massive game. It's not the Liverpool that were. They still have some very good players that can score goals. But it's an opportunity. Nocky, thoughts ahead of the Liverpool game?
I hope you're right about the atmosphere. I don't think you're going to be. I think Molineux has been flat all season. I don't see that changing for the Liverpool game. I think we've turned into one of these wishy-washy clubs that have been up there for the last 10, 15 years. The atmosphere is just horrendous to me at the minute. The team, I absolutely agree. I think we all know what team we're going to go for with the 3 picks itself up front. Massive game. We definitely owe these one. I don't think we've had a...
I think we owe them more than one.
I don't think we've had a point off them since we've been back, have we? So I think we're definitely due one, but it's going to be hard because they've still got quality. No matter how they're playing, they've still got quality in the team. They can still hurt you from everywhere on the pitch.
Absolutely. I mean, Tyler, this isn't the Liverpool team evolved, and any team that doesn't have Van Dijk is going to be more vulnerable, as we've seen in recent weeks. But it's down to Wolves to take the game to Liverpool, isn't it? Because Liverpool have looked weaker when you've gone at them. If we tuck in again in that game, I could only see a Liverpool win. Let's go toe-to-toe Saturday, Tyler.
Yeah, I might be wrong because I don't fear this Liverpool side at all. Like I said, our midfield 3 over there, 3 on paper, I'd have ours all day long. Can we cause a bit of problems going forward? That's been the question all season. Salah's a world-class operator. You've obviously got to keep an eye on him, but I'd be disappointed if we don't get anything from that game, genuinely. He's had time to work with the players. One thing we say about the transfer window is he's been backed. He's given the players he wants, so now it is time to deliver, isn't it? So I'd be disappointed if we don't get at least a point from that game, and I'd be going into it wanting to get all 3, to be honest.
Ben, it sounds simple, but every time I play Liverpool, every time I watch them, I just look at the fullbacks at Liverpool and how much space. They're basically saying, play the ball next to the centre-back and you're going to get an opportunity to cross the ball or take a man on. I know that sounds really simple, but that ball in behind Alexander-Arnold is on again. The ball, not as much for Robertson because he doesn't quite get us forward as much, but that ball in behind the fullbacks is on again and again. And if we match them 4-3-3, surely that's the best way of beating them by getting wide and getting in.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we spoke about that FA Cup tie at the start, and there's a part of me that thinks, that Moutinho, Hodge, Neves midfield, we know that doesn't work. Wolves couldn't have played their first choice midfield anyway, but they've not give Klopp anything to look at, essentially. They've basically blanked that game. Klopp can't watch that game back and think this is what Wolves are going to do on Saturday because it's going to be a completely different team, completely different setup. And Wolves midfield should dominate them. No question for me. They're a much better midfield 3, not even close. And Wolves need to just dominate the game from there. And then they can be got at. I don't think their centre-backs are great without Van Dijk, who's not been great anyway this season. Gakpo's short of confidence. Nunes hasn't looked, he's just chaos theory. Like, it might happen, it might not. It might bounce off him and go in.
I'll take one of them.
this isn't there's a reason Liverpool are where they are in the league. They're not a good side, and Wolves need to go into that thinking they're playing the side that are 10th in the Premier League. They're not going to play Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool.
Absolutely. The approach, I mean, we all went to watched that first game when Wolves took, I think, 5,500, drew 2-2, felt robbed. I've got to keep saying it because I can't get over it. But that approach that day when Wolves didn't have any fear to take the game to them, Wolves, I would say, were probably the better side on the night. And that's not something I thought I've been saying. And that's with a considerably weaker side than Wolves have got available to them now. So I agree with you, Tyler. I'm feeling good about that. But on that note, then, let's go to your predictions for the weekend. And we'll start with you, Tyler, as you're feeling positive. I'm going to make the most of that.
We'll lose 3-0. No, I'm joking. I'm going for 2-0 win.
Get in there.
I think Molyneux will be not great, but I think he'll be buzzing. And I think he's had time to work with it. And Liverpool are bang average, so 2-0.
Nice. Nocky?
I went for a win against City and ended up looking a bit daft when Arnold was so I fancy a 1-1. I think it'll be 1-1, and I think Sarabia for Wolves.
And I'd take a draw all day long, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, if we're at the bottom three after this game,
after playing those two games against City and Liverpool, if Wolves are still 17th, it has been a fantastic couple of weeks. Ben, your first scorer and score prediction for Wolves. Try and keep it single figures, please.
No, I think Wolves desperately need like a dodgy refereeing decision early on. Not for it to...
They'll beat some Liverpool, yeah.
No, yeah, against us, just to make the atmosphere spiky and horrible. And I think if they can get that early on, not contribute to a goal, obviously, but a couple of, the fouls go against Wolves and stuff. And I think they'll win 2-0. Start of the second half of the season, I think they'll win 2-0. And I think Cunha...
Say it. Yes! Get in there. I mean, I don't know where I go from here, boys. This positivity's this is stuff for dreams made of. So I'm going to keep it boring, but I'm going to go 2-0 Wolves. I'm going to go Cunha as well. Massive opportunity, 2 weeks with the squad. Why not? This has been episode 51 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much to Mirror Football's Ben Husband for joining us. Thanks to our regular two midfield generals in the form of Nocky and Tyler. This has been episode 51 of the Wolves Report. Of the Wolves.